Hello, I'm Abby Wray, and thank you for joining me for NewsDesk, the KW student news source. Today, we'll be talking about Black History Month, COVID-19, sports, and more. First up, the Multicultural Student Union here on campus will be hosting several events to honor Black History Month. We caught up with Bella Allison, who shares the events the Multicultural Student Union has to offer.
Multicultural Student Union has 4 events planned every Friday of the month of February. First being a presentation with the speaker. In the second February, we're going to have a movie night. The third, we're having a fashion show. And then the last Friday of February, we're having a potluck.
Stay here. In just a few minutes, we'll give you a look at that might surprise you about just how diverse student body really is. Next. Even though KW has faced many obstacles and challenges throughout the fall of COVID-19, student athletes have been working overtime to keep up with a clearly chaotic schedule. This semester, every sport will be on the field, thanks to delays, cancellations, and safety requirements for COVID-19. NewsDesk caught up with football player JJ Barajas to ask him what he found most challenging about playing ball this semester.
We always have to wear a mask. We even have to wear masks on our helmets, little face shields. It's going to be really hard because usually the spring is where you can, take a load off and focus on schoolwork. But with season incoming, it's going to take a lot of focus to work on school and football at the same time.
In other news, Kansas Wesleyan's girls golf coach Hannah Hendrickson gives us an insight as to how this 2020-2021 school year has been different, not only for the athletic community, but for the KW family as a whole.
There's a lot of added responsibilities to pretty much everybody. Everybody has a responsibility, to keep the campus safe and to keep the students safe and the professors and everybody like that. So it's more of a, I think President Thompson refers to it as like pack accountability. So I'd say there's more responsibility on each individual person just to make sure that they are making the best decisions, not only for themselves, but for campus. And then just some little things here and there, like we have, daily temp checks, and we're, making sure that we're spreading out when we're at practice or when we are having team meetings and things like that, making sure that we're wearing our masks and washing our hands. Travel's been a lot different just in terms of that as well, just making sure that we're wearing our masks in the vans, and when we're at hotels, making sure that we're not coming into contact with people that we don't know. So I'd say there's just more like a more conscientious effort of what we do when we're out in public, I guess. We're very conscientious of who we come into contact with, what we're doing when we're, out and about.
We were able to catch up with KWU soccer athlete Tyler Goodwin for an athlete's perspective on the changes occurring in what was her usual athletic experience. She told us that having the stands empty had a major impact.
Yeah, it makes it kind of difficult because you aren't allowed to have a lot of fans. I know not a lot of people watch soccer anyway, but it does suck not being able to have my family in the stands watching me.
That certainly does bring an interesting perspective. Next up, we have the KW sports reporter, Hunter Pane. Hunter?
Thanks, Abby. Let's see what happened last week. On Friday, January 29th, our competitive cheer team placed second at the KWU Invitational, while our competitive dance team placed first in their invitation. During the weekend, both men and women's bowling team attended the Hastings Bronco Open, where the women placed 8th and the men finished in 5th. The next day, they both competed in the Hastings Bronco Bash, where the women placed 6th and the men finished in 2nd. Volleyball crushed Avila 3-0 over the weekend. Earlier this week, baseball traveled all the way to Panhandle State University, where they crushed them 10-4. They will be facing them again later in the week. Both men and women's tennis faced Morningside Mustangs at Genesis on Friday. Looking into the weekend, we have men and women's bowling teams facing off in the Mid-States Bowling Championships. The track team will be competing in the Bethel Thresher Invitational on Saturday. And finally, we have women's basketball team facing Bethany College. Should be an easy dub. That's all I have for this week in sports. Tune in next week where I'll recap what happened over the weekend and let you know what's coming up. As always, stay safe and roll yotes. Back to you, Abby.
Thank you, Hunter. The head bowling coach, Todd Zimmer, is a relatively new face on campus. Arriving in the middle of a pandemic, he is working to keep his team safe while also staying active. Coach Zimmer has had his hands full. In spite of those challenges, he says he thinks he's found a good fit with the Kansas Wesleyan family.
My experiences here have been amazing. Completely different from my last school. I think the campus is well taken care of. Everybody here seems to work as a family, and for me, it's completely the opposite of what I came from, so I've enjoyed it a lot here. So I'm glad to be here.
We are happy to have a new bowling coach on campus this year, and good luck to the teams. Next, it comes as no surprise to the students, faculty, and staff at KW that our student body is a diverse one. Communications major King Fanene is a Samoan that attends Kansas Wesleyan, and he decided to track down and interview his fellow students who also hail from the Pacific Islands. This week, he sits down with communications major Sisipako Vehekite.
How has the culture shock of Salina, Kansas affected you?
Well, being here, it's to be honest, it is kind of crazy, like being going away from home, because I'm so used to a really big city compared to this small town, and plus I feel I'm the only Tongan at the school, or besides Shark Nation's half Tongan, but being the only Tongan here, it's it's kind of crazy to me. But to be honest, I'm kind of used to it because I've gone to school where I've been the only poly at my school.
Really?
Yeah, I come from the suburbs, and not too many polys live where I come from.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nothing too new to me, but it's definitely the only culture shock is coming from a big city to a small town.
Definitely. I mean, there's only 700 kids on campus.
Yeah.
Just about.
Yeah, not used to that at all.
Do you feel like there's enough diversity on campus?
Yeah, I mean, I would say there is. I think there is. Within the different minority groups, but Polynesians, not enough Polynesians at the school. But I mean, with other groups, I think there's a lot of diversity between the African Americans, Hispanics, and Asians, not too much though. But yeah. Asians and polys, I don't really see too much of that. But everyone else is pretty diverse.
Nice. And if you could bring one thing from our Polynesian culture to Salina, Kansas, what would it be and why?
What would it be and why? I think it would be the food. I think I would love to bring our Polynesian food to Salina, Kansas, only because, it would make us feel a lot more closer to home.
Exactly.
It would be like our home away from home, especially since we're so far from our own homes. But yeah, definitely the food, and I think that would make, it open up a lot of doors to a lot of people because they're trying new things that they probably had never tried our food before. So definitely bringing our food out here would be my number one thing.
Nice. And I see you have some ink on you. Could you tell us about that?
I do. Well, so this is my Polynesian tribal, specifically Tongan tribal. Right here is, or I have a certain design. It's underneath my arrowheads, but we call it the kubesi, and that's specifically a Tongan design that we use on all of our ngatus, which is like our traditional mats. And for this is definitely not like, you don't see like Samoans or Fijians have this. This is like specifically a Tongan design. But the arrowheads and the weave mats, you see that on every other poly. But
as you do, look, the arrowheads and the weave mats on mine.
Exactly, the weave mat arrowheads, that just represents our culture. Arrowheads because our ancestors were hunters and gatherers, so represents what they go through. And behind every tribal art that we have, it represents our ancestors' stories. So and it represents who we are as people. That's why when people get it to look cool, it ain't just to look cool, man. It has deeper meaning. It's literally our history.
Exactly. Well, Toko, thank you so much for this interview. I hope you have enlightened many of the Salina natives a little bit more about our Polynesian culture.
Yes, thank you for this. I'm honored.
King will be back next week with more from his fellow Polynesians. Now we're going to Tyler Goodwin for the Coyote Calendar.
Thank you, Abby. Welcome back, Coyotes. Hope you all had an amazing break. Let's get into the calendar for the week. Friday, February 5th is Red Friday. At 9 a.m., head over to Student Development to get some tips on income taxes. And at 7 p.m., Multicultural Student Union will be kicking off their events for Black History Month with guest speaker Dr. Trent Davis. Saturday the 6th, there will be Super Bowl celebrations in the resident hall lobbies at 5:30 p.m. Stay safe this Super Bowl Sunday, Yotes. In other news, Monday Night Alive is back and will happen at 8:15 p.m. February 8th at University UMC. Wednesday the 10th, DeAndre Childress is back in Fitz Auditorium at 7 p.m. hosting talk. That's all I have for you today. As always, roll Yotes. Back to you, Abby.
Our final story today is also about alumni, current communications professor and assistant debate coach Kiefer Storer. He is a published author. His book, 10 Months of Courage, is a coming-of-age story set in 2012-2013 that encapsulates growth, love, loss, and adversity. Storer recommends that everybody reads his book and told us about how his life impacts his writing and his future writing plans.
I kind of like to market myself as like a more woke John Green. It's something that I am really proud about, in particular about this story, is I always want to be debate and speech and debate forensics has always taught me to be academic about things, and I love pop culture and how like movies and books and TV shows can form arguments. And so something that's a little bit subtle in the book is I do this deconstruction of the manic pixie dream girl archetype. And so that's a really exciting thing if you hate about how like certain YA authors or certain like male authors predominantly just like put female characters on pedestals and don't give them like their own agency and stuff like that. I deconstruct that within the book, and so it's also one of those things that you got to read it through to the entire end to really see it happen, to see an evolution of it happening. But I'm pretty proud of what I did with that. I'm working on a second novel right now that really works on deconstructing the concept of like male anger and like making sure that like guys don't use women in their lives as like emotional therapists to like burden all of their pent up angry emotions. And so that's an exciting thing that will probably come out late this year. And then I'm working on like a short story right now there's some time travel involved.
If you're interested in purchasing Storer's novel, search 10 Months of Courage on Amazon, and it's available for physical purchase for only $13. That's the news today, and I'm Abby Wray. Thank you for joining us, and have a wonderful week.